given by the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Walter Jackson.
Dear God, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for this Board of Trustees. We thank you for this beloved community of Porte ISD and the stakeholders. We ask that you would guide our hearts and our spirits as we come together to make good decisions based on what's best for students, staff, and the entire community. Bless us at this time, and we shall forever be careful to give your name the praise and the glory and the honor. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. You may be seated.
All right, we will move to action item 3, public comment. The board will now hear those who wish to make comment and who have completed and returned the public comment participation requests. This section will be conducted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act and board policy. Complaints and concerns for which other resolution channels are provided shall be directed through those channels. Mr. Shoppy?
No.
All right, let the record show there's no registered speakers, and we will move on to action item 4. Discuss and possibly approve amended compensation plan for 2023-2024. During our regular meeting on June 13th, the board unanimously approved the budget presented for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. In discussion prior to the approval, it was determined we would gather questions for further consideration and or adjustments to the employee compensation plan section of that approved budget. Board, we have discussion?
Mr. President, if I may, I want to invite, if you don't mind, invite our CFO and our Executive Director up to the podium so that they can help us.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, board, discussion is now open.
How do we go about making a change? How do you want to do that? Just make a motion?
Well, if there's questions about any of the data, we need to discuss the data, and if we can resolve any issues about the data, and then we can move to propose amendments or adjustments. Is that okay by everybody? Deanne, any questions?
Sounds good.
David?
No questions.
Good? Good? Good?
Good.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Then we will move to proposed amendment.
I would like to, in this recommendation, it says SRO pay, but I'd like to increase the extra job pay for police officers by $15 an hour. That's all I got.
Does that put us at 50?
That puts us at 50. So do I need to make a motion and then we discuss it?
Or we get
Motion second, then discuss it.
Second.
okay. Second. Okay. Any further discussion?
I think we need to be a little more conservative because we need to remember that everything we're doing is coming out of our fund, and we still don't know what the legislature is going to do to us or if they're going to do anything for us. So I would feel more comfortable if we did the 10 than the 15, but that's just my opinion.
I agree with that as well.
Okay, but the motion right now is on the 15, so we need to move to,
A second.
Unless he wants to.
because we do have a first and a second on the initial motion of 15.
Right, you would either have to amend it or vote it down. And I was gonna make one observation. Y'all have traditionally made a motion, gotten a second, and then discussed the topic. You don't have to do it that way. You can do the opposite. You can discuss topics and then discuss it through and then make a motion. And sometimes, as here, that may actually be the better course, because that way you're not having to constantly change motions that have been made.
Right.
If the board decides they want to do something other than whatever it was, 15 or whatever it was that was recommended.
Okay, so
that's just an
So-
option.
So as it stands, we have a motion for 15, seconded by Mr. Martin,
Continue discussion?
and we continue to discuss, but now Ms. Thompson has said that she would like to take it to 10.
But our original motions?
So the original,
Motion's still standing.
So
The original motion still stands. At the moment, it's just a comment, and somebody would have to.
Unless Mr. Perez and Mr. Martin would agree to amend the
Amend it.
motion to 10, but if not, then we'll have to vote on the 15.
I'd like to discuss it first.
Yeah, I mean, the financial impact of 10 to 15 is so minimal. From looking at this, it says $9,000 for 10, $14,000 for a $15 an hour increase. And to us, that may not be a big deal, but these people who are out here dealing with these issues and out at these extra events, I think we could put up the extra.
I wanted a little clarification though, because I think if I remember correctly, it's a tri-part pay as far as between a regular game, a playoff game, or something like that. So I'm assuming on the $15 increase, it'd be $15 on the 35, 15 on the 40, and 50 on the 40. Because I can't remember the actual amounts, but it was a three-part.
Right, correct, it was.
So is that what you're saying, 15 on each? So there'll still be that dichotomy between or trichotomy?
I think 50 flat. I don't know what benefit we're getting out of. I think they'll be appreciative of the 50 rather than if it's a
So
graduation
50
or a
flat
playoff
rate
game.
regardless of playoff or
No matter
regular
what
game.
it is. That's how I'm proposing it.
So it would be a full 15 each then? With that?
Stacy, can you refresh our memory
Right.
as to what it is currently?
Broken out?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is 35 for, if we have it written down, I apologize. We had it, and these are paid, it's not in the compensation plan, these are non-employees of the district.
Right.
It is 35 for regular games, and then it goes up to 40 for any special events. And I think then it tops out of that. Was there a 45? I don't believe so.
I thought I remember seeing something about playoffs.
Playoff game.
I remember there was a
Yeah.
Playoffs and
playoffs.
graduation are both 40, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think it was 40.
So just making it 50 straight across.
That would be what I propose.
I'll say this, so, that $50 an hour is the market rate, but it's not this year. They've had that for the last 2.5, almost 3 years at $50 an hour. And for what we're getting, it's going up next year. So we use them a lot for different events that we have at the Chamber of Commerce and things that we do. And so that is an outdated rate already. And so I'll say this, like if we were EMS or other things, like we have to pay the city's market rate. So it's, I don't know, I mean, to your point, Mason, it's a $5,000 difference to bring it up to the current market rate. To me, I don't know, I mean, it's a blessing that we've been able to get away so long with them not paying a market rate, is how I look at it.
I did some research behind the scenes, and I was asking like Lyndale and other plants and things that people who, and Jeff with the chamber uses them, Pasadena Rodeo, and we're all at $50 an hour, and like Jeff said, we're going up on those rates for next year. I know the Pasadena, some of the things that organizations in Pasadena are going up higher than 50 just because that's the going rate, and to increase and to get better officers and to get people out there. So that's why we came to that $50 number to get us where we need to be.
I got a legal question. Since it's not in the compensation plan, our agenda says approve amended compensation plan. Does it even need a motion? Do we just need a direction to say, here we go, 50?
This is not in the compensation plan.
No, because police officers are.
Police officers.
Are not a part of our, they're not
Contract
employees.
service employees.
I would still do a motion. It's not a motion to amend the compensation plan.
Okay.
But it formally gives the board the power to do that.
Okay. Okay, so the motion is to increase 15, to take us to a 50 flat. And you seconded the motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All right. With that position resolved, is there any other recommendations?
I'd like to discuss the master's degree, doctorate degree stipend. So we are proposing, or we've discussed proposing, go from 1,000 to 2,000 and then from 2,000 to 4,000. And just looking at that financial impact, I still think that based on the market and what other districts are doing, I still think that we could make an impact even if we just did 500 and 1,000 on each of those. And it would put us at 82,500 instead of 165,000. And then it would put us at 2,000 instead of 4,000, which I know that's not that other number for the doctorates. First of all, I was really shocked we had less doctorates than that, but that is a pretty significant dent, and still, shows appreciation versus some of our surrounding districts.
Any other comments? Okay,
You're saying 500 and 1,000?
Yeah, 500 for masters.
And then another 500. It's increasing it by 500, right?
Right, increase it by 500, yeah, so it'd be 1,500, sorry, I apologize, so.
No, it's all good.
That's the difference, the 82,500 is the difference, just like
Yeah.
the 165 was.
Okay, let me ask you this, what would be the number, with the 1,500, and then you're proposing on the doctorate 2,500? Or are you leaving it at 2,000?
No, make it 3,000, because we had it 2,000, move it to 4,000. Am I correct? Did I read that correctly? Mm-hmm. So we would be going up 500 for masters, we would be going up 1,000 for doctorate.
I think that does make us more competitive when you look at surrounding districts.
That would put us
Well, you
over
put
the other.
I'm good with the masters on that. I'm not so sure about the doctorate. Because, yeah,
But you have to give it some disparity from the other, if you make the other one
we're talking
1,500.
about 2 employees.
So you do 500.
You see what I'm saying?
But is this imperative that we do
I
it
would
this
do-
year, or is this something we can wait on?
No, we
Well,
could wait,
It's
but
hard with hiring right now.
Well, but we gotta be careful on a lot of this, if we
Got a lot
go
of
deeper
people
into
want
this.
to come in?
I
Okay.
don't know.
One, David's got the floor, one second.
Because a lot of this, I mean, generally, you're not going to get disagreement from me as far as all of this being called for, because I agree we need to try to be competitive. I think our employees are worth the extra pay, but I also feel, also too, kind of the elephant in the room is we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, because we got to address the revenue problem on our maintenance and operations side. And until we get that addressed, we're going to be locking in a lot of this, especially with some of this that's getting into 5 figures, 6 figures, and it's going to make any future board or future superintendent, or it could be further, closer than we think, as far as making decisions if we do not address that revenue problem, because that means someone's going to have to pay the piper unless we can find a nursery with trees that grow money on it. We're going to be heading into to a point where we're going to be going off a financial cliff until we address that revenue problem. And that's no fault for any board member on this board or any superintendent. That's just the situation that this school district and other school districts are facing due to the Texas legislature not fulfilling their constitutional duty to fund public education. But I just feel like we need to make sure we address the revenue situation first before we can start locking in all these kinds of increases. Now, I'm okay with some of the de minimis, like what we just voted on, because that's not going to take us any closer to that, financial cliff, yes. But when we start looking at 5 figures, 6 figures, then we're talking about the equivalent of a teacher. And if the revenue situation does not change, then eventually some hard decisions are going to have to be made to help fund whatever we do tonight. And it could be loss of teachers, loss of paras, loss of staff members, loss of administrators. And that's where it starts affecting. That affects everybody, including the students in the classroom. So I just want us to be very careful. You're not going to get me an argument, for me, as far as the need for all of this. Don't get me wrong. I feel like we need all of this. But we got to be very careful that we just don't put the cart before the horse until we address that revenue situation. And the sooner the better.
Thank you, sir. Mason?
I don't have any comments about it.
Russell?
I agree 100% with David.
And, I didn't foresee how this was all going to transpire, but I really did take some time to kind of articulate my thoughts on the matter, and I've really tried to just explore the numbers and scrutinize the numbers, and I prepared a statement, if you'll let me. I think it kind of explains my position. The adoption of the budget is a sole fiduciary responsibility of the Board of Trustees, and many will say most arduous task of the calendar year. Regardless of our sentiment towards our teachers and staff, we have an obligation to ensure the district is solvent. While the state legislators grovel over its plan to spend a $1 billion surplus, we stand to adopt a local budget with an $8.5 million deficit. The political theater playing out daily on our news shows public school funding being held hostage at every district across the state, contemplating how to make it work in its current form. While the basic allotment stands at $61.60, Americans have experienced inflation of 19% since allotments were last revised in 2019. Employee compensation, utilities, insurance, transportation, security, food service have all risen to cost levels never before seen. But we are still required to pass a budget, and apparently to do so without any adjustment to the basic allotment. So where does it come from? Do we ask our teachers to hold class in the dark because we can't turn on the lights? Do we ask parents to find their own way to get kids to school because we can't afford transportation? Do we not feed the students, many of whom receive their only meaningful meal when they're on our campus? Clearly, I'm not serious about that, but the suggestions are a point I hopefully have made. But the serious question remains, where do we get this money? No one at this podium up here believe that our teachers and support staff are paid too much money. In fact, most would agree we could never pay them enough. But it's not a conflict of sentiment of the heart. This is a matter of being pragmatic, period. So while I regret to say that we do not currently possess the funds to offer compensation beyond what is approved, I do believe that the board is committed to finding the means of doing so. To our teachers and staff, I would ask for grace as we navigate this uncertainty of public school finance in Texas. We are your biggest fans and will not rest until we find a way to more appropriately take care of you who do so much. And that is where I stand on the issue, because I completely agree. I think we're at a point now that we could cross a line that we cannot recover from. And we could pay any teacher, any educator, any support staff, any dollar amount that we wanted to, but if we have to turn around and cut the job because we can't afford it on our payroll, then what is the point? What have we accomplished by that point? So we all, when we took the seat, we all knew that this was going to be one of the most arduous tasks that we had, and we are facing it today. And we have to make tough decisions, and I know that everybody here believes in our teachers and that we can never possibly pay them enough. But right now, I believe that we need to take a stand to not pass any further compensation adjustment until the legislator comes back and gives us something to work with. Or something. In the private sector, I'm very, very aware of how it works, and if my costs go up, I can adjust my price to offset the cost. We don't have that luxury in public education. The income remains the same as a constant is fixed until the legislature does something, but our costs continue to go up at an astronomical rate. We are not exempt from inflation, and truly we're facing that, and the balance sheet does not lie. We do not have those funds. There's many that will probably sit and say that, oh, we just passed a bond, we have funds. We cannot use those funds for our compensation of any employee. It's against the law. So we try to carve off everything we can with those funds so we can have maximum amount available to pass our position. Anyway, I know I'm getting long-winded. I could talk for days about it. It breaks my heart. It makes me mad that we're in this position, but the state legislator has truly failed public education at this point, and until they wise up and do something about it, this is our reality. So we can talk about pie in the sky all day. We can have the best of intentions. We do not have the funds. So that's my take.
I have a question. So our gap in between enrollment, approximately 7,100 kids, and average daily attendance, is it 65? What is how many hundred kids gap is that?
That's 600.
600 gap. If we were to fill even half of those with getting them to school, it's easier said than done. Do we have I know they're all weighted differently, but we have an estimate on what that would look like financially in terms of revenue gain?
Do it real quick. Yeah, so just 6160 times 300. So that's $1.8 million.
So how do we get more money? So that is, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not saying that at all, but that's the lower hanging fruit. Well, those are kids that are enrolled in our school that aren't showing up. There's money. That's just, hey, we get half of them back. The other thing is, I know we mentioned last time, because I'm with you guys too, like, I guess what I differ from you guys is I think we can't do everything, certainly can't do everything on this list that's been proposed, but I don't think that doesn't mean we can't do anything, all right? And so, what was mentioned last time, I think the last 5 or 6 years, you mentioned we have adopted a negative budget, right? But I believe last year was the first year, at least in that 6-year period, that we actually took an actual loss. And I've had
No, last year we did not, we have not taken a loss.
We would adopt a deficit budget, but we would end up putting money back into the fund balance.
Right, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure, when you talk about last year, you're talking about 23? like
this past year, yes, ma'am.
The
22,
we're still-
22,
22,
22,
okay,
excuse
because
me.
we're still in 23, so
Yeah.
we are gonna take a loss in 23.
Okay,
Next
so,
year starts at
is
22,
it about 2.2 or 2.3 million?
So in 22, we actually put $4.4 million into the budget,
Okay.
and that was due to ESSER, most.
And that's what's going away.
That's to kind of offset some of
Yes.
that.
But I'm saying, I guess when we got it, and I don't put you on the spot, I don't think y'all have these numbers off the top of your head, but the comment was that we had adopted negative budgets for at least 6 consecutive years, but the only time that we, in that 6-year period, that we had an actual loss was this past cycle, right?
We are, that, in 23, that's gonna end, on Saturday, or on Friday, I'm sorry. We will have
First
a
in
loss.
6
We are estimating a loss, and that's the first time we've had a loss in the past 5 years.
And how much is that loss you project?
We are projecting that to be 2.5 million.
2.5. And if I'm recalling, it was our adopted budget was somewhere approximately about $7.5 million expected loss?
It was actually 6.8.
6.8,
Right.
okay. So I guess what I'm getting at, that's a pretty, that's amazing, right? Like
And the
more than
reason-
50%.
Right, and the reason for that is because our values went up, not just the values of property in our district went up, so we received more revenue money.
And that's with a gain of 150 students from the year before that, and we're still,
That's very
yeah.
true, that's very true.
So even if you gain another
The first 2
150,
years, we were back in the COVID days.
Right.
Right.
The first time now in 3
and you're
years.
still getting a deficit.
But the point I'm trying to make is, so the other 5 years, we adopted a negative budget, but we found a way to be in the positive on however it happened, it always, and I don't know how negative those budgets were, that was before my time. I don't know if it's in the millions, couple million, I don't know.
They were all in the millions.
And so we found a way to do it. So I say this, like this 8.5 is scary. Like who wouldn't, I mean, but I appreciate that you guys have been ultra conservative. I have faith that that's not going to be the actual number, right? That we're going to find a way, if it is a loss, it's going to be closer to $2 or $3 million, which again, that's not great, but it's sure as hell better than 8.5. So I'm not looking at that as a real number, and maybe that's not the way to look at it.
Do you mind if I make one
Sure.
point? This is based, this 8.5 loss that we are projecting and that y'all approved on the budget. That is based on remember that maximum compressed rate? That's based on what we currently have because they haven't changed it. They're still meeting right now. So
Yeah.
we have no
Really even
idea.
further. Yeah.
But I can guarantee you it's gonna go down. I mean, I will bet
Probably about
youngest son on that one.
you don't like that one?
Well, the third is hard.
So if they increase, let me make sure I understand you. So if they increase, if the legislature through a special session, which they just called, further compresses the rate,
It further compresses it.
that will increase, assuming all things stay
That's gonna
equal,
that's
increase
gonna-
our deficit.
Yes, sir, because it's gonna decrease the revenue that we are gonna be able
That
to
we can
keep.
keep.
So that means that how much we have to pull from our fund balance is gonna go up.
I know you probably don't have this, and I'm gonna throw it out there. So if they did, because right now we have a 2.5%, I think, what they were looking at.
Compression, yes,
Compression.
compressed right
If they
now.
go, I heard there was a proposal for 1.75. You don't think so? Okay.
It's not gonna go up. I mean, right now, we've lost the 12 pennies.
Yeah.
The MCR that they're at right now, right now, the House and Senate are still fighting it out. And their special session ends on next Tuesday. And so, but the governor can call it again.
And-
Call it
and
again,
plans to.
call it again.
Yeah.
And- Right, because they're not playing nice right now. But one side is saying, okay, we're gonna drop it another 8 cents. So that means we lose 20 cents. We have the 12 that we're automatically gonna lose. Plus really like this little bitty penny here that, because of the compression, or almost another penny, plus another 800 that. That's the possibility right now. And then on the other side, you have, okay, well, we might touch the MCR, but we're also going to do tax, the homestead exemptions,
Yeah, increasing that.
increasing that dramatically.
Yeah, if the 100,000 passes, that's a big number. It's gotta be huge
Well, and
somewhere.
I shared with Dr.
It's gonna have an
Jackson,
impact on us too.
Deer Park, I'm sorry, well, Deer Park does it too, but LaPorte does, everyone gets the $40,000 right now on the school tax. But also, we give them an additional 20% off. So it's 20% plus the 40,000, because that's a voluntary exemption, homestead exemption
That's a
that we
local.
give. And many of the districts around us do that. I mean, that's a normal thing. And so we've been doing it from the early 90s. I'm giving an
And-
extra 20% plus.
And we're getting taxed on recapture on that optional homestead
Yes.
too, on that 20%, yeah.
Yes,
So-
so it's a double whammy.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak out of both sides of my mouth here. This is it's a tough situation, and, you know, I've gone on record multiple times saying I don't want to make decisions based off theoretical. I want to be pragmatic. I want to, right now, what is our reality? And I totally agree. I see what you're saying in terms of the operational budget and how we've shored up, somehow reduced the deficit in the past. I think the play I like is to call a special session for us at the drop of the hat, as soon as the legislator gives us a better directive on how we're going to be compensated. What is the effects to our plan? Because that's going to give us a more clear picture. Right now, there's too many variables. You know, I wasn't great at math, but I know that you can't have that many variables and get the equation right. And we've got to start eliminating some of those things. And until they do their job, we're in limbo.
Now, hypothetically speaking, if they come through and they say they're gonna give us stuff in October, we can go back and change all that stuff, right? And give raises, do whatever we need to do, or do any of this stuff?
That is your prerogative. At that point, and like once, if you feel like at that point when the air has cleared and they have said, okay, this is gonna happen, and this is the time frame it's gonna happen, because you know it's not next day. They're gonna say it and then, okay, Monday, we
When it's
start doing
effective,
this.
right.
I mean, that's not how.
Well, how hard is it gonna be for y'all to do that?
Well, they'll tell us. They'll
Okay.
say, okay, this is when it happened, but it's effective then.
Okay.
Has that ever happened? Like, I know theoretically we can do it, but like, has it happened in this district where like that happened when we implemented the spring semester?
It has, and just more, probably 4 or 5 years ago, Chris, I don't remember now, but we were in, I was superintendent somewhere else, but I remember it happening. Our budgets were passed, and then the state legislature did something late in a session, special session, or what have you. But nevertheless, it was brought back to the districts, and basically the state said, this has to go here. And so what we had adopted for the school district, that was part of our budget, but the new money was not a part of that. So basically the district took care of their staff and raises, and then there was some more money on top of that. So it actually bloated that budget because the state said you must do it for this group of people. So hopefully they won't do it like that. You know, they'll help us to encumber some of what you've already done. But we're hopeful. We're cautiously optimistic that something is going to happen in the near future. We just don't know when.
And I've spoken to different CFOs throughout this area, and that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, okay, we're going to wait, and we're going to let the dust dry, and we're going to see what happens, because whatever I give right now is most likely not going to be a part of, and we're going to have to do whatever on top of. And so we're adopting this with the contention that we can come back. And you always can come back.
When do we have to decide on the Vader again?
The beginning of August. At the beginning of August, we will have, that the state will give us what the MCR amount is, what ours is. And then at that time too, we'll have the real property tax values. And then we will do another calculation, and you can see at that point what is happening. And is it better, is it worse? And that's when we can give you somewhat real numbers.
Because at that point, we would
And I feel like
have
that would be a
to,
better, give us more information to go off of, and we have the recommendations that we are interested in. We know what we would like, what we would like to do, but having more information would definitely help us make a better decision.
Is it possible to make a motion to, like, everything y'all saying makes total logical, perfect sense. I just don't want it to slip through the cracks. Is it something that, can we make a motion on this, to say we want to, after the true numbers come through, that we have an agenda item to discuss this at a subsequent board meeting?
And, you know, Chris, you can answer that, but you don't even have to make a motion for it. You can just let your board president know you want this on.
And I actually conferred with Chris about it to know, like, were we limited in the number of times we could call that? And he assured me that that's not the case. We could do it as often as necessary to come to a resolution.
Because we're gonna have series, or now you got the special session on the property tax, you're also gonna have a special session probably in September about vouchers, which could impact too, so. And then we're talking about,
A whole lot of these.
yeah, have a whole lot.
So that was my dilemma in the actual, that particular thing, was that knowing that the money isn't fully there and we don't know what's gonna happen, but still trying to find something. So that was where cutting the recommendation to a lesser amount. I would be content with making a decision at a later date to make a more sound,
And the fact that, and thank y'all for y'all's hard work getting this numbers, because
It
I
helped
think
a lot.
as far as the board, we got the financial impact, we got, you know, everybody's opinions of what our priorities are. It's just now coming up with the revenue to make sure that, you know.
and that
we can
last
do it.
meeting, everyone was passionate about some portion of
Yeah,
this,
that's
and now we're all like, wait a minute, we don't have no money.
And it's $1 million. It's over $1 million.
Yeah.
And Jeff said it earlier, and you said it, and now Walter will say it, just to repeat and to reiterate what we know our public hears, and we need to make sure we continue to share. There's only two ways that we get revenue streams, right? Increased enrollment, or that state decides to increase the
allotment.
the basic allotment. And right now, 6160 is where we are. But I can say, and I've shared this with the board on several occasions, our ad team and cabinet and principals, we're having those conversations we had today about enrollment. What we can do, what can we do? We can't make people move here, but we're certainly doing everything in our power to kind of, you know, to spruce up what we do to entice people to want to come here, because that's how you actually do this. School districts to the west of us that are doing some things that are a little differently than we are, they're fast growth districts. So much of what they do, they pay for their raises and all of the things that they want to see happening. It's through fast growth money. There's a different allotment of money they have. There's some different weights that they get. It's a whole lot more than 6160 you get when you're a district with a fast growth, such as a Katy or a Cypress Fairbanks or something. And so we're just in a zero growth district, and we just have to come up with some new ways of revenue streams. And I shared a few of those with you this past week.
And Walter, and just to reiterate what I said on, I can't remember what day it was, but it's not just more just knocking on doors and getting kids back into schools. It's going to be having that conversation with the city and what our vision, what this city is going to look like to be enticed for families to move here. Because if that's not going to be a case, if we're going to be a city of warehouses and industrial districts and not of homes of families wanting to come here and live here, the long-term enrollment is going to be stagnant until we get that conversation with the city to make sure of what this vision of what our city, LaPorte, is going to be for the next 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. I know, Jeff, you've been on that committee with the strategic plan, but making sure it fulfills that. That's the only way we're going to get kids long-term and make sure that this district grows with students and attracts students and families, so.
You know, I'll add that the unfortunate thing is, well, it's not unfortunate, we were able to approve a 2% raise for our team going into the year, regardless of the debate and discussion and amendment. So we already have that going. But to me, I'm almost embarrassed by it, that it's such a low number. For us to pass on any meaningful, significant rate increase to our employees, I mean, look at the implications we have right now with such a small number. If we were to double that and go to 5%, there's no way we could come back from that.
Right.
So the implications to the district far exceed any kind of gain we can give to our team members at that point. And again, I know there's a number of teachers and faculty that listen, and I just beg for grace in terms of we are working. I've never met such a passionate board. Everybody on this board is extremely passionate and bleeds orange and wants what's best for this district. And we will find a way somehow, somewhere, and hopefully sooner than it is later. But I just feel at this time, it is best for us to,
So, Mr. President and board members, I just want my last final comments on this, and I think Angie and Stacy could certainly amen this, but we're watching a lot of things happening in our region where people are bragging about the big raises and the big things that they're doing. But I think this board needs to go on record that what you did for our staff a few weeks ago, we did it without having to lay off anybody, without attrition having to take over. There are school districts in our region that have allowed 150 people to have to go away. 80 people, am I right? And so some of those big raises that you see, those big dollar signs that are going out there, people are being let go so that they can free up revenue to do those things. This district did not have to do that for anyone.
And
people that were working here in the spring have the right to be working here in the fall. That needs to be on the record, that you were able to do that.
And we don't know their situation either. They may be driving 90 miles an hour down that financial cliff, and they may not be able to support it. But I don't want necessarily us following them that quickly and that fast.
But we do get into the wage war because our people see what is happening in other places.
Yeah.
So I'm only saying that to say that we're trying to do this the right way by protecting the families that we're taking care of.
Based on current registration, do we see the enrollment going up this year any?
You know, this is early. It's hard to know, but I promise you guys will get our earliest numbers. We've already got set up a time where we're going to go knock on doors. I mean, what you said, David, is true. We're going to have more conversations with our partners and stakeholders and leaders of other entities. I want to do that in a professional setting so that they don't feel like we're, saying that they're not doing something. But we are doing some new efforts on reaching out to people that, decided they were doing homeschool and that they were doing virtual, other kinds of things.
Right.
But we are in a zero growth district. That is the bottom line. So we do have to come up with some new ways. And so we're trying to polish our brand. You've seen that on social media and so many other ways. We just hired new people to go into our communications department who we believe is going to be able to help us with some of those things. But we're working and trying to attract young families to come and grow with us.
Are we able to find data on, say we had a student leave Baker and go to the Fairmont Park Church Private School? Are we able to track that? I mean, do we know if that student's not enrolling anymore and able to reach out?
If they enroll in another public school, we can track them. So anytime a child leaves and enrolls in another Texas public school, we know where they ended up, Baytown, Pasadena, what have you.
Do we reach?
When
I know
they go
it's
to private
impossible.
schools, it's harder to figure out unless the parent is just going to say where they're going.
I know it's probably impossible to reach out to all of those students, but are we able to reach out to say, why did you go to Deer Park? I mean, I don't know if that's logical.
There was a report made about 4, 5, 6 years ago. I can't remember how long ago, where it was. We had track of which kids had gone to, let's say, like Deer Park or whatever. So I can't remember what year that was, but that was a while back.
Now, I know people move. I mean, you may have a family move to Deer Park, but if they're living in Fairmont Park and I'm going to roll at Deer Park High School, well, that's an issue we should know about. I know it's who wants to call every one of those people and knock on their door? Nobody, but maybe
we want
worth
to call
finding
them
out.
if we got a chance at winning them back.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
I don't know why.
if there's no further discussion, I still seek a motion to adopt the budget as passed.
I want to make one comment. I'll make
Yes,
it.
sir.
No, you don't have to.
No?
We've already done that.
We've already
Okay,
done that.
so,
You don't have any motions on the table and you don't.
and no discussion.
need any more motions.
Okay.
I wish I could just keep my mouth shut. And I don't want to say this to be like the argumentative or problem child at all, because I appreciate, I love that this board has adopted on this tonight. We had a conversation about $5,000 expense, and we're leaning, being a lot more conservative. And I think that's a hugely positive thing. My comment is that I hope that as we go forward and look at things as it pertains to bond and others that are higher ticket items, and there's a lot more opportunity to have savings, that we've had that same level of critique or monitoring, if you will, when we look at those issues as well. Because just last week, we had one where I made the case we can save $150,000 and say, well, it's not, we don't have time. I don't know why that's bothering me so much, because that's $150,000, and to me that's a lot of money. And I know you can't use it on teachers, but you can reallocate it to a safety project. There's a million other things you could put it towards, right? There's no shortage of issues that are going to come up on that spectrum of the finance. So again, I appreciate you guys being so meticulous on monitoring, on the general fund. I just hope that we can keep that same level of attention as we go forward with all projects.
And in addition to that, I'm gonna try to say this as eloquently as possible, but everyone in this room, all of our leaders in this room, y'all do a fantastic job leading your teams, and then how that trickles down, in the chain. What I do want our teachers to know and for our leaders to know is that while we cannot make a decision on these extra recommendations, it does not mean that we don't value you, but also if there are things that we can do for our teams that does not need to be on their plate, we absolutely need to remove that off their plate so that they feel more valued. And so just really taking time to look at that and make sure that we are saying, hey, we realize we've put the past few years, we've put all this extra on you, and we're trying to scale that back as much as possible, just to make people understand that while we can't do some things financially, we will do it emotionally and physically support them the best ways that we can. And I think that's the other thing I would like to offer them at this point.
Yeah, and I think that goes a long way in retention, culture, and, we heard them when they said they needed more collaborative time and more planning time, and, we adjusted our calendar to give them those things. So hopefully they've seen, some of those actions that we've taken that may not be monetary, but we hope is making the difference in their daily work.
No one should be doing a task that takes away from the children learning, from them developing themselves to be better teachers, and then from, them working collaboratively for the whole child. I think those are the most important things. And so if they're doing tasks that are for their supervisors or in different ways, if there's things we can take off their plate, let's.
Yeah. And shame on the Texas legislature for tying our hands to what more we could be doing for our staff and for our teachers.
I think it's all part of their grand plan.
Well, before we adjourn, I just want to make sure that everybody's had the opportunity to say what they, Russell, you're
You
good?
good?
So we're not voting on anything right now, we voted on the
We
$50.
voted on it already.
That $15, that's the only motion?
On that?
Correct.
Can we have any kind of update on how the bonds go, how the stadium destruction or construction is
That's
going?
not on the
Stuff like
agenda,
that,
that's not on the agenda though.
It's not on there?
We're not meeting in
Piling
July.
more data.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank
I do
you.
want to make a note that, I know we've had a lot of talk about paraprofessional pay and program care. And I think once we have some better numbers, like we're all saying, that we'll be able to look at this better, but I didn't realize that the financial impact was going to be that great. For a $1 an hour raise, it's $100,000. I would have never thought, to be honest, I didn't know we had it in Paris, that they would get that number that high. So I'm looking forward to seeing the numbers, because I agree with the community and some of those paraprofessionals that we need to increase a little bit. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of
closing
the
comment.
first
The
places we
manual
would like to look.
trades as well.
In the manual trades, yeah.
Yeah. I
Good.
agree.
Very good.
Yeah.
David? Deanne?
Good.
I think I got an email, was it on grade 7? Was it grade 7 or, I can't remember, was it an email? Something up?
No.
Yeah. No? No. Okay. Okay, well, anyway, maybe when we do have some numbers on that as well, as far as maybe looking at grade 7 as well, when we ever discuss. Yeah, pay grade 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about 7:30. I'm like,
No.
that's an email?
No.
You just scared me. I'm thinking,
right.
I'll call up on my emails. What
If
are-
there is no further discussion, our meeting is adjourned.